Alexander Sasha Zverev versus Jesper De Jong, French Open round 4. Spoilers ahead in 3, 2, 1. Alexander Zverev finds himself in the quarterfinals of the French Open of 2026 in a rather puzzling first set performance, and yet ultimately a routine day at the office, as most would put it. And yet, I have certain concerns which I will get deeper into, starting with analyzing the sets in a perfunctory way, a casual way, and yet I will highlight aspects of his game which frustrate me a little bit, and I say this as a person who wishes for someone to get what they have worked for. So I am in a position where I am rooting for him to win the French Open because of the position that he finds himself in, and it will be very engaging and very, very interesting to see whether he ends up doing so, which we shall see. First set. Zverev has a good serve, everyone knows that, and yet he falls behind love 3 in the first set. He quickly finds his bearings, breaks back 3-all. It is puzzling to me watching this first set. Highlights, still, I might be missing a few points here or there. The forehand was misfiring by a lot. At one point, the forehand was shanked by Zverev 4 or 3 times in a row, which led to a loss of a game. Now, in isolation, is that a big deal? One game lost? Considering that it's a 4th round of a Grand Slam, and perhaps the first time that I can recall that Zverev finds himself as the #1 favorite to win a Grand Slam, a trophy that's missing in his trophy cabinet, I'd say yes, that's kind of a big deal. And that forehand deficiency, which has been something of a theme in his career, and yet he's been working on, rearing its head here, I'd say it's a reason for concern, not panic. The match goes into a tiebreak primarily because De Jong is very spry, very agile, has got good touch of the net, he's making Zverev move around, and Zverev started off a little bit sluggishly, or so it seemed. Zverev is going through the motions, he's very, very, very stoic in the early going, and in general, I think he's taken on a very calm on-court persona, which shows some level of maturity, and yet, for me, at this moment, I believe that Zverev has to show more intensity, a little bit of emotion to drive him through those lull periods of matches where he can sometimes fall. There is another aspect of Zverev's energy management, which I will get into after going through the beats of the match. Second set, more of a routine Zverev performance, and yet it seemed to me, and I will be harsher than normal because of the level of play and the urgency that a player in his position, I believe, could show. And I might be being unfair. We shall see. It seemed like a performance in a Masters 1000 tournament, not a Grand Slam. He's not necessarily looking to close out things fast. I believe there's an element in Zverev's game where he's so confident in his serve, as he has a right to be because that serve is elite, that he sometimes allows the player on the other side of the court to dictate play as long as they are serving. Because Zverev knows that should the match go into the tiebreak or 4-4, 5-5, he has the game to hold and then probably close it out by some drop of level while serving from the opponent, or in the tiebreak, Zverev fancies his chances. And that is something that has been at the back of a very, very elite career already. He's won more than 99% of players, maybe. I might be stretching that a little bit, at least 90%. He's cleared by this formula, and yet the position he finds himself in, which will be my through line during this entire review, I think that is far too lax an approach, and it is frustrating because he has all the tools to force the issue in his favor. Third set. De Jong is not quite experienced at this level, and that shows. He is trying a lot of things. He's trying to make Zverev run, which could be a sound strategy if one were to ignore that Zverev is one of the very few players who, while still being pretty tall for a tennis player, moves very, very agile, or agilely, I should say. He's very, very swift on his feet. Sometimes he's a little bit sluggish, a little flat-footed. It was not the case in this match. Generally speaking, Zverev was moving around very well. His primary deficiency was the forehand that I pointed out, and yet the backhand was on song. That backhand is a thing of beauty, very rarely falters, which was the primary headline going into the third set as well. Few unforced errors from that wing, very clean hitting, as is customary. De Jong really starts to attempt shots that he would normally not try, which is very commonly seen when a lower ranked player finds himself with a challenge of fighting against a clearly superior player when it comes to skills and experience and match handling. Zverev continues his rock-solid tactics. His forehand stabilizes a little bit. Not too much. He does clean out a few forehand winners too, so the shot has some capacity to be even the primary wing in some circumstances. The forehand being able to dictate play is something that we are seeing in the game of Novak Djokovic, whose backhand is probably among the top 2 or top 1 best ever. So it is clearly possible to improve the forehand deeper into a career. I believe Zverev does not have to wait until 35 or 37 to try that. It should probably get as much focus as Roger Federer gave to his own backhand in 2017, which itself was pretty late into Roger Federer's career. The larger racket, the focus on the backhand could have been done much earlier. Zverev, being a player who's seeking that first title, probably should be hungry, maybe. I believe the forehand can be refined so much. And I say that while knowing that maybe he really is doing that, and I'm being unfair by looking at a small sample size, that being this match. I know that he has been working on it vis-a-vis Australian Open semifinal against Carlos Alcaraz. What I will say, a little bit on the technical side of things, and I'm not the number one go-to expert on this, what I can see is just what my eyes tell me, and let's see how that goes. Zverev's take back on the forehand clears the high point of his shoulder, which costs time. Zverev is a tall player. His resting position of the forehand right before the wrists open up, that is already higher than most players' resting position. I'm not sure why that take back needs to be so high. It costs him time. I do not believe he will lose any pace on the shot if he's able to reach that resting position without clearing his shoulder while doing the take back. That is one. The other point about energy management. Zverev has very stable energy throughout a match, which dips the deeper you go, which is exactly what happened. In his own words, if I recall correctly, and I'll paraphrase, Zverev said his energy dipped late into the 5th set, owing to which he lost his serve, which had not happened in a very long time in that match. A lot of players, they peak. They aim to have their energy skyrocket during the critical junctures, and their footwork is sharp. They're very keen. They look at the ball like a football. When they need to, they're able to compartmentalize their energy. Novak Djokovic is absolutely the first name that comes to my mind. Even Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Andy Murray, all the great champions, Stan Wawrinka. I have seen Novak Djokovic especially look completely out of a match and then compose himself, come back, an absolute saint on the outside, and collected focus in his execution. Zverev could benefit a little bit from that. I believe he could conserve his energy a little bit better and aim to be explosive off of his legs. And I see that same thing as a pattern sometimes where he's too stoic for the situation that he finds himself in. I'm not sure, maybe that's something that he's trained himself to do, which might be serving him very well. I just, from the position of a person who wants to see someone take opportunity when it is presented to him, it seems that a lack of urgency might cost him within the confines of this tournament, which might be his best chance to get a Grand Slam, or maybe a few, who knows, maybe this gives him the confidence to get many, were he to win or were he to come very close. I just think that this is his tournament for the taking, and the style of play I saw in the 4th round might be a little bit lacking in terms of experimentation. You've got a solid game where you can even afford to be a little bit risky on the forehand wing in order to find more confidence, and it's just one match. So I have to be fair now, and I say that he's a 3-time Grand Slam champion, multiple-time title winner, ATP Finals I think he's already won. So it's not just that I'm saying he's doing something wrong, needs to change completely. It's just that I believe the situation calls for it. Will he answer the call? Will he need to answer the call? Maybe none of what I'm saying will be necessary, and all of this is an overreaction based on one match, and he goes on to win the title easily, coasting on the strengths that are huge strengths. That serve, high contact point, he was banging that serve down, creating uncomfortable bounces for De Jong. Maybe he does that. Maybe he's able to find his forehand, and that's stable, and that backhand continues to cut into the uncomfortable zones of the backhands of other players. Maybe none of this becomes relevant, and yet maybe it does. So I say that from that point of view, and I hope to see, and I'll be very, very interested to see how this tournament progresses for one Alexander Sasha Zverev. Till next time, this is Duncan Lievi. Oh, and yes, Zverev does all of that while being someone who suffers from diabetes too. So hats off to the competitor that he is, and hats off to the warrior that he has been, and I hope he continues to be. Till next time, this is Duncan Lievi, signing off.